Let's get it. This is Life's Essential Ingredients with Jeff and a Mike, where we hope to inform, inspire, and transform lives, one essential ingredient at a time. Welcome to the show. Here we go again, back with my Pasha. We are season 2, episode 42, and we have Chris Plourde coming from Santa Monica, California, basically my Pasha's neighbor, and the best place to find Chris. He's all over the place, but I'm just going to get you to his website. Very cool site, and I'm going to spell it out. It's ChrisPlourde.com. ChrisPlourde.com. So a little bit about our guest. Chris is a Los Angeles-based conscious performance coach, consultant, speaker, and mind-body instructor with over 20 years of experience. Chris has traveled both nationally and internationally, speaking, educating on the physical, mental, and emotional aspects of wellness and life. Chris has worked and coached well-known companies such as Walt Disney, Enterprise Car Rental, Xerox, Lululemon, Twitter, and more. Chris has mentored and consulted with celebrities, business executive, top fitness professionals, and military special ops personnel. Intense. Chris disrupts old patterns and identifies limiting beliefs, guiding his clients to achieving their goals and to fall in love with the journey of becoming the greatest version of themselves. I love that. Chris, thanks for dedicating your life to helping others, and thanks for being a guest on Life's Essential Ingredients. Welcome to the show.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. And so we always start with the thought of the day, and this is a great one from Gandhi. And here we go. Live as if you were to die tomorrow. Learn as if you were going to live forever. Why would I pick that one for you?
Well, I'll start with the learning. I just really think it's being curious and continuing to fill up your cup on a regular basis. That it's not necessarily about the destination, but about making the most out of the journey that we're all on. And really embracing what we have happened for us, where we're going, all the things that made us who we are is just, I think that's stepping in fully to our ownership. And, you've heard this before, but seizing the day, we don't know what's going to happen and things shift and change all the time. So fully step in and make the most out of every minute, every breath, every day that we have here. Yeah, that's a good one. Good find.
Thanks. Yeah, I love the thoughts. And that's what listening to you on a couple other podcasts, I really like how you, and we're going to explore this, not right now, but what happened for us, and I think we try and look at this show, life's essential ingredients of just, hey, let's just figure out what are those ingredients in our life. And I think there's just things that happen for us that when you can get into that space, you realize, man, I didn't really like the taste of that, but it was actually something that was pretty essential in my life that, I couldn't see myself being the same person that I am without that, so I really love, I heard you say that before. I just love happened for us, and even just changing like one little or two little words happened to me kind of can get you in a different space, mindset wise, as opposed to happened for me. And I'm guessing that's where your expertise comes in with your clients. But let's take a step back. What was life like, growing up, and take that any which way you want. You can go back to little guy, or you can go back just, whatever you want. Just share that with the listeners.
Yeah, no, great. I obviously I'm in Los Angeles now, but I started off in a town south of Boston called Brockton, Mass. Very kind of blue collarish, athletic town. It was all about, being a man's man and performing in sports and doing your thing. And, it was a great place to live and grow up. But, I was a very sensitive kid growing up, and and there was a point where I was like, I would cry at the drop of a hat or just very sensitive, but that was poo-pooed upon, like it was like, don't show your emotions because that's where you're not going to fit into society. Right. And I think that was the way my father was brought up. His father was brought up, father's father. It was like, get to work, put your head down, suck it up and go. And I think a lot of men that are listening to this can relate to that. And so I did. I buried those emotions. I said bye to that little boy inside me and said, we'll meet again later, but you can't feel what you're feeling. And did the whole sport thing, played football, wrestling, college sports. Then I transitioned into endurance sports later on in life. And, I got the business degree, thought I had to work for a great company. And I did different variety of different companies. I worked for great corporate companies, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. It wasn't the culture or the language that I wanted to speak. And ironically, I work with those companies now, but I wanted to be more of a coach, more of someone who was able to really be fully authentic in the truth at all times. And a lot of these companies don't allow you to kind of speak the way you should speak, and I think that gets in the way of their growth and development in life and their success and performance. So, you know, my whole thing is when I kind of came out of that emotional armor that I put on, was able to take that armor off or take those masks down, I really found a place inside myself that that was missing. I was like, wait, this is part of you. You need to be able to feel the feels and go through life and experience the highs and the lows and go through those things that aren't just, you know, spectacular, and joyful. It's like sometimes you gotta fall down. A lot of the
Mm,
times you gotta fall down in
mm,
order to meet that success. And when I really understood this and I realized, hey, we're here, falling, getting scars, doing our thing. This is what life is all about, and we get to feel the feels. And I think what you were saying earlier about around the happen for us as opposed to us, I think the big difference in that is stepping into the energy of ownership. You own everything that's happening in your life versus victimhood.
mm,
Right? When we're victimized by what is coming our way, the problems that appear in our life tends to be very victim mentality. And I know people that are listening to this right now go, well, wait, they're getting kind of disrupted, but it's a mindset that takes time to change, right? It's not going to happen overnight. It's like one of those things is how do I want to live my life and what direction do I want to move towards, as opposed to making decisions based upon what I don't want. And I think that's a fundamental shift that we get to make is how can I look at these things as challenges and growth opportunities as opposed to things that are going to really set me back and hold me back and keep me down as they have for years. So
mm.
stepping into the power and fall in love with the journey, I think is essential for owning our lives and being the man and woman that we were meant to be. So,
Wow, man, you said a whole bunch of incredible things right there.
mm,
And I think that the thing that really jumps out to me is you kind of looking at what happened to you growing up of how you had to put on that armor. And then at some point, and this is going to be
mm,
my question for you, when did you develop this self-awareness that that armor didn't serve you at all and it
right,
actually weighed you down and
right.
inhibited your ability to move forward?
Mm.
And you did say you took the armor off. When did that happen for you?
Well, I think I really got a huge glimpse of it when I joined a men's team about 15 years ago. I've been in men's work for 15 years, different organizations. I've been on teams, been in different leadership roles, men's weekends, so on and so forth. But I remember going to my first men's team meeting and sitting there and going, look at all these men. Why do I want to be around these men talking about all the problems they have? I want to go to somewhere where I can be inspired and be in a place where people are winning and successful and so on and so forth. I found myself really judging this, but for some reason I kept going back and I kept going back. And what I realized is these aren't problems. What they're actually doing is they're talking about what's going on in their life. They're not holding it in and those emotions in. They're sharing their vulnerability with other men and letting this come out so that they don't have to live in this torturous prison inside themselves where all these, for example, shame and guilt grows in power because we hold it in. But as soon as we're allowed to let it out and people hold that space for you and can relate and understand, yeah, I got that issue in my life. Yeah, I feel that you're going through this loss and you're grieving. I understand that times are tough financially right now. When you feel that team and that power around you and people not judging you, you realize quickly it's like, this is the safe place to be. This is where I can actually really grow. And getting a glimpse of that and being in that for as long as I've been was able to take a lot of those techniques and understandings about true vulnerability and ownership and bring it into my coaching practice today. So that's when I first got that little hit, that little glimpse of it.
Mm,
So
I love
yeah.
it. I love it. And you kind of had to sit there and let things marinate. So it's kind of cool that you were in that space to just take life slow. And perhaps you would have been in that first session and be, ah, man, this isn't what I'm looking for,
Right.
and kind of turned away. And it sounds like it totally changed your life. And so obviously that your self-awareness was kind of off the charts. How do you help your clients if there's someone
Mm,
that's just not able to really make those connections
right.
and see empowerment through vulnerability,
Right.
and missing that essential ingredient in their life? How do you help
Mm,
someone, kind of just be
mhm.
more self-aware?
Right. Well, I mean, it's different for everybody. Different people are at different paths, different timelines. Life is happening in the just right ways and the just right times for all of us. And what I can do is just plant seeds, right? I'm not doing it for them. I'm able to plant seeds, and they're going to water when they're ready, right? And one thing about being vulnerable in emotions is one thing I learned kind of the hard way is it's not just about going, hey, I want to share with you what's been happening for the past 10 or 15 years, right? It's having the right people that can hold that space for you as you share and let out whatever you're going to let out. And I think that's where a lot of people get confused. They're like, well, I'm just going to start being vulnerable. And it's like, well, a lot of people aren't ready to hear what you're ready to share quite yet. So it's really finding your tribe, your team in order to let that out. And the first thing I think is what I do is I try to, ask really deep questions. And if I'm with groups, I'll have them, answer, talk to each other and hold that space and let stuff out and give them some really good questions so that they can start peeling back the layers. But it's all about just really owning that or being able to provide that space for them, being able to share some of the things that I've been through to let them know that they're not in it alone. And once I think that's the best context of all, I think is when we can share a story or two of something that was really hard for us in our lives, but we got through it. And here's where we were. Here's how we made the transition. Here's where we are now. Once we're able to do that and they can see that, I think that's where we start to build some trust. It's time where they start to get it. But that there's that moment of sharing. If you're going to do it first, then you pave the way for them to do it as well. So
Mm-mm-mm.
yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And it just leads me to kind of understanding the importance of just listening. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure that's a skill that, at least in the work that we do, try and help people develop an awareness of, can they just truly just sit and listen? One,
Yeah.
listen to themselves
Right.
without any distractions and just see what they're feeling.
Mhm.
and struggling with, and then two, when they're with other people, to just learn how to just sit and listen,
Right.
and
Right.
so many times we're talking and we just want to start thinking about what I'm going to say, and now I've missed half of
Yeah.
what the person was talking about. And do you have any tips on how you help your clients learn to just listen?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a acquired skill, it's pointing out different things that we might hear within um, certain time frames. It's like, can you dial in and just hold this space while your partner talks? You ever see that the nail in the head video? It's not about the nail, with the wife and the spouse.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, so I give him that about listening, right? Because I think for men, we'll talk about both, but it's all about pointing out what's wrong, or the projection of what's wrong, right? And I can fix you, I can do this. And when they can understand, when they understand that it's not about fixing, it's not about being there to kind of point things out or even project of what is happening, it's about just holding space, right? Asking good questions, deep questions, allowing that person to be whatever they're going to be in that moment. And when that happens, I think it really brings an incredible connection between two people, because it isn't about judgment, because there's so many of us that, even though we say we're good listeners, you can see the judgment that's happening within that, and it's trying to get rid of the judgment and accept that person and love that person for who they are, right? And when we can really accept rather than judge, I think that's when we're ready to make that next transition forward. So, and I learned that skill. I don't even know if it's a skill. I'm still learning it every single day. We're on this path. But with my father, for example, just to kind of share a quick story, is him being an alcoholic and going through life the way he went through. Great man, he's there, but he buried a lot of his emotions. He didn't take care of himself. He kind of, he just I looked at it as, like, in the early age there was judgment there. But when I could sit there and go, what, he's making this decision on his own and I can do nothing to change it. I can love him and accept him for who he is, and look at his life and say, what, yeah, he lost his mom at a young age. He lost my sister when I was young. He went through some really hard times. And when I can meet him with compassion, then I was able to accept him and love him even more. And so when I was able to do that with my own father, then I could kind of take my clients and my friends and the people that are around me and go, what, they're on their path, I'm on my path. I'm just going to accept them for who they are and listen to them and love them and ask them what they need in these moments. So,
Man, well, I appreciate you sharing some personal details of your life and some of your
mm,
struggles. Um, and I don't know how to state this, but
mm,
the unconditional love that you talked about, and helping your clients learn how to love themselves, and then to believe it, and to take action in that unconditional love. And then I also was listening to you talk about this internal freedom. And for me, those are almost, and I don't want to put, but in my mind, they're very similar. Because when you love yourself, you have this confidence, you have this belief, you have this freedom that comes with everything, that allows you, in your case, to kind of forgive your father, and to have that compassion, and to just love him for who he was, and looking at that time of your life of that happened for me, not to me. And I know I'm always fascinated with, how do people, figure that piece out? Because, like you mentioned before, there's so many people that blame and judge, and then can have the mindset of kind of using that struggle as their struggle to kind of go through their life with, as opposed to getting that freedom. Um,
mm-hmm.
so yeah, what are your thoughts on what I'm sharing? I don't know if I'm giving you, I mean, it's a little
Yeah,
bit.
no, it's great. And you know what came up just this morning with a client. I was about to teach a class this morning, and we were the only ones there before everybody got there. And she's like, "I was listening to one of your podcasts, and that you were on, and something really hit me that was really pivotal in changing the way I operate." And she said, when you know, and we all come from different religious backgrounds and we have different beliefs of what it is, so I'm not trying to impose anything on anybody, but I just asked this question. I said, what if before we came to this earth we were the ones that chose our parents? We were the ones that said, I want those parents, I want this thing to happen, that other thing to happen, so that I get to go through this karma or learn these lessons or do these things that I might not, that might be extremely challenging, but on the other side of that, I'm going to be this type of person. I'm going to evolve into this next level. And she goes, it really hit me hard, because I'm sitting here blaming my parents and still really upset with them in my late 40s, and I'm not able to accept them for who they are. What if they gave me this gift of being able to look at myself and not put the blame on other people and say, yes, I chose you. I wouldn't want another childhood. This is exactly what I needed to make me the man or the woman that I am today. And I think that reframing of that aspect really is about that freedom that you were talking about. It's like we cannot go back and change anything that has happened, but we can change our relationship to it, our perspective on how we hold things. And the beauty is, we all are right, because we all have different stories and different traumas and different things that we've been through. So when I work with couples, I tell them immediately, I go, you're both right. This isn't about proving one person wrong or taking sides. You're both right, but you have different perspectives on the same exact story. And so, how can you glimpse at her perspective or you glimpse at his perspective? And it's the same thing with parents, same thing with siblings, same thing with friends, coworkers, whatever the case may be. Understanding that they both have an idea of what is right or what should happen. Once we do that, we're like, oh, I can meet you in a way with compassion, with love, with acceptance. And that sets us free. It doesn't make it, something we're going to continue on, necessarily, but it's just really being in a place where we can go, yeah, that's the place I want to come from. That's the place I want to live from here on out. So,
Man, I love that. And you were so articulate with it. And that's actually the kind of similar work that Mike and I are doing with this pizza.
mm-hmm.
People have these ingredients that are on their pizza, and there's no right or wrong ingredient.
Right.
It is what it is.
That's right.
And both people are right. But when we're doing this, you're going to make your pizza, you're going to have a partner, and you're going to have to serve your partner a slice of your pizza, and they're going to get to see life through your eyes and why you like those ingredients. And it
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
goes hand in hand with what you're talking about. And then they're talking about it while they're eating some wood-fired pizza and kind of learning how to appreciate the perspective that each individual
That's right.
has. And so I just
Yep.
love hearing what you're doing with your clients, and then validates kind of the work that C4 Leaders is doing to try and bring people together
Yeah.
with the world's
Mm-hmm.
number one food. But let's get into
Right. I
your
started making pizza when I was 13 at a pizza place in
oh,
Boston. That was my very first job.
no.
And I'm still making it and spinning it for the kids these days. So
Oh,
we do
nice.
it at least once a week. So,
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah.
Well, unfortunately, I'm not a good I'm not a mechanic at all. And uh I ended up buying this truck and then putting this pizza. I was really fortunate that I didn't cause an accident or didn't get in an
Mm-hmm.
accident. This 3,000-pound pizza oven on the back of a
Wow.
Toyota Tundra, and the thing was basically dragging on the ground. But I just wasn't in a space to see nor hear that you're smoking crack, man. This is too heavy. And then I just took
Yeah.
it to the Bay Area and the springs dropped even more. Long story
Wow.
short, we just got a truck that's meant to hold this heavy oven. And Mike's been asking me, and we've been talking about it forever to get that baby down to San Pedro.
Come
So
on.
when I'm coming, we're gonna hit you up
Jay.
and celebrate and have some incredible pizza. Because yeah, we've had a few guests on the show that have been from your area, San Diego. We keep saying, all right, well, we're gonna have this big pizza celebration, and so we're gonna add you to the list.
All right,
Um,
let's do it.
yeah, yeah. But hey, let's get into the show. It's called Life's Essential Ingredients. So I do want to get personal with you. What do you do for yourself? What are your essential ingredients? I know you have kids. I know you're
Mhm.
coaching. I know you got life is happening, a
Mhm.
lot going on. But what are those essential ingredients that you, hey, I get these into my life, my routine, my habits, whatever words you want to
Yeah.
use,
Yeah. Yeah.
and life is good. Um,
Yeah.
what's your, yeah, how do you, yeah, just go into that and maybe give some tips
Sure.
for the
Sure.
listeners.
Yeah. No. I variety of different things. I meditate every day, once or twice a day. I work out some sort of movement, whether it's yoga, swimming, hitting the gym, cycling, indoor cycling, like all of those, anything to get my body into movement, right? I sauna 4 to 5 times a week when there's cold showers, ice, all of that to really kind of let my cup get full, journaling, really. And the thing is, I'll make these suggestions to clients and I don't expect them to do what I do. It's like, try these things out and see what does it do for you. What it does for me is it really allows me to just peel back the layers and get all those great chemicals running through my body so that I can operate on a really high level. Another great thing is breath work. I've been teaching that for a number of years now, which I incorporate into my workshops and different classes that I teach, which is really good because it's a form of active meditation, so to speak, right? And meditation is all about just being present. Everybody thinks, oh, I get so many thoughts going through my head and I'm not a good meditator and da 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 da. And that's the thing, is it's not about being good. It's about understanding you have 70,000 thoughts a day. You're, of course, a thought's going to come in while you're meditating, but the idea is to catch that thought and understand it and see it, and then bring yourself back to the senses: hearing, sight, smell, taste, feel. Those are the things that bring you back into the body. And when we can get present, that's where life starts to take on some magical moves. So I think but it's having fun too. It's not just those things, but it's going out, going to the beach, going for a surf, hanging out with my kids, being with my wife. We have our nightly talks that we made a ritual for the past, what are we going on, 18 years now. That's something I really look forward to and I love, and keeps my cup full. So those are just a few. We could go on and on, but what I would encourage people to do is, if they're not liking where they're at, you know, what are some new things that might be a little uncomfortable, that might bring up resistance at first, right? Everything has resistance, but being able to say, I'm going to commit to this for the next 4 weeks. I'm going to be disciplined enough to say, I'm going to do this no matter what, 3 times a week for the next 4 weeks, for the next 6 weeks, and the 8 weeks. And I believe that discipline isn't about this militaristic way of doing things in life, which so many people were brought up that way. I think discipline is what equals freedom. Us committing to certain practices, even though some days we don't necessarily want to do those, is what will bring that internal freedom out, is because we're committing to ourselves, because we love ourselves enough to do that, because we know how good it is for us. So
I love it. I love it. And I love how you're, what I would call the guru, but you're like in disguise almost, because you keep pushing that off to your clients, which is really refreshing to hear. Of you're just going to plant seeds and you don't have all the answers, but I'm going to share some things that I think are helpful, but you kind of have to figure it out. And when
Mhm.
people can take that ownership, now they have the intrinsic
Yeah,
motivation to carry out the insight that you're just trying to, again, plant the seed and kind of water and nurture, and then they can grow it,
that's right.
and take ownership of it. I love that. Any books that you've been reading that you recommend? You're like, oh man, you got to read this
Yeah.
book.
Yeah, I love two that come to mind real quick is I always introduce the chop wood carry water, which was given to me by a client of mine, a successful businessman, and that talks about fall in love with the life of with life's journey, of becoming your greatest self, and kind of this story about a boy going through master archer camp and what it is about being able to carry water and chop wood every day because they're at a camp with no running water or no active heat and stuff. But this is what brings them to this, gives them the strength and the focus in order to become those masters, right? And I think a lot of us along the way, we forget that that foundation of what we used to do to give us that inner strength, that consistency, um, is what we forget a lot of the times. We kind of move on, but it's bringing us back to basics. So chop wood, carry water, and then um, Michael Mead has a couple of great books that I just finished: The Water of Life, and uh, God, I'm drawing a Fate and Destiny. Fate and Destiny is the other one. And he really writes in this beautiful way of mythology meets um, his life meets today's society. And so he runs the three of those kind of stories together, which really brings out a lot in us, because the power of myth, the power of story is what helps us connect to a different part of our brain, the right part of our brain that stirs emotions. So we can have somebody tell us what to do all day long, right, and say you got to do this, you got to do that, but it's the stories which really get to us on a deep rooted level. And he does a masterful job of bringing the three of his life, mythology and today, into his books. So
Mm, I love it. And what a great segue. And we're just going to jump right to the end. What's the story? I'm going to share a quote with you in a second, but what's the story
yeah.
you want people to say about you? And you can think about that. And this is like the legacy part of the show.
Mm.
John Alston has an incredible quote that I love. The only thing you take with you when you're gone is what you leave behind. So let's fast forward 60 years. You're a young man. You've been taking care of yourself. You've coached people all over the world. What is it that you want them to feel as you take your last breath?
Mm. I really think, I really feel we're all here to be in service to something bigger than ourselves. And if I can allow myself to fully be in service to humanity, to earth, to this short period of time that we're here, and really make an impact so that people can shift perspective and ways of doing things as they come at things with an energy of pure service. A true king isn't about I'm going to rule a kingdom. A true king is how can I serve my people, right? So being in service and getting people to really get that, once we get our fundamentals met, then how can I serve and use my own individual gifts that I've acquired or unleashed throughout those hard times that I've been through in my life, right? That allowed me to see what an amazing person I am. Not me, but speaking in general, all of us are. Is how can we now use those gifts and our passions to live a life of fulfillment, to give back so that others get to do the same thing and pass that energy on to one another. So, such as you men are doing.
Well, thanks, and you are amazing. And listeners, again, if you want more insight from Chris, go to his website,
Mm.
chrisplourde.com, CHRISPLOURDE.com. Pashito, I know you've been over there taking it in, and it's this time of the show to get out. But give us your last insight. We'll let Chris give his last words, and then we out.
Yeah, Chris, wow, that was incredible. Thank you so much. And, the way you eloquently put everything, you're planting seeds and it gives all of us hope that we can do it. And
Mm.
I think hope is a great thing to give people. So, as a coach, I think you're doing an outstanding job. Thank you for being on the show. And thank you for enlightening me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Any last words for you, Chris, or are you good?
I think I've said it all. I'm just, an honor to be here. I just really, my whole dream is that we all fall in love with the journey, is really with who we are, and we start stepping into our power and the ownership of what has happened for us, like you stated at the beginning. And once we can do that, I think, we're destined to move some major things in this world, because we're all doing it together in this one big team, Earth.
I love it. I love it. I love it. What a great show. Thanks for spending time with us and our
Yeah, yeah.
listeners. Listeners, we thank you again for tuning into another episode. Mike and I still can't believe we're season 2, episode 42 in 36 countries, like 450 cities. So thank you for all that you're doing to support the show. And we know how we do it. Pasho, boom, baby. That just happened. We out.